Hi, welcome to Pyrography Made Easy. I'm Brenda. I have 4 main burn strokes that I use in pyrography: circular motion, pull-away strokes, uniform strokes, and zigzags. Of those 4, circular motion is the burn stroke I use the most often. In this video, I am going to do a deep dive on circular motion. I will explain what it is and show you a number of different ways that I've used it in my artwork. Well, let's get started. Circular motion is simply burning a continuous chain of circular shapes. Open circular motion is where the underlying surface shows through here and there. Closed circular motion means that none of the underlying surface shows through. I don't burn rows of circular motion. Instead, I allow the nib to meander around the board, creating small patches of circular motion. The patch of circular motion can be fairly uniform in color, like the previous example, or have more tonal variety, like I'm currently doing. The tonal variety is controlled by reburning. Reburning over small areas darkens them up, and this increases the tonal variety in the patch. Circular motion can be used to create gradient color. This is done by reburning. I started by burning a wide band of color, the base color. To the right of the base color, I increase my hand speed and I don't reburn over it a lot. This produces lighter gradient color. To the left of the band, I slow down my hand speed and I reburn over it. The further to the left I get, the more I reburn. Do you have to do it in this way? No. Instead, start on one side and work your way to the other. The size of the nib can impact how the circular motion looks. This writer pen tip produces a smaller circular motion than the shader I was just using. As you can see, the writer pen tip works just fine. In fact, there are times when I prefer a writer pen tip over a shader. I will show you some examples of when I use a writer pen tip later on in this video. I often use circular motion to create seamless transitions. Transitions are areas where the color changes. In this example, the lower portion of the cheek is darker than the top of it. I'm using circular motion along that transition to create gradient color from dark to light. The important thing is I do not want any noticeable lines forming. To put this another way, I want the color to have gradual, smooth, seamless transitions from dark to light. With this orchid artwork, I wanted a dark background, but I didn't want the color to be uniform in nature, so I used circular motion to create tonal variety. I began by first burning a small area to give it a base color. Then I reburned over it to further darken and begin the tonal variety process. I used a combination of open and closed circular motion for these 2 layers. Afterwards, I reburned over very small areas here and there to create really dark blotches. I use circular motion to create fluffy clouds. I begin by drawing some basic cloud shapes. Then I start with the bottom row and fill it with circular motion. I make the color darker at the bottom and let it get lighter at the top. Then I move to the next row and repeat. I have an in-depth tutorial available on this, and a link to that tutorial will be in the video description. Circular motion can be used to create fog or mist. The process is similar to clouds. The big difference is that you must define the edges of the fog by burning the background behind the fog. Layers of fog are created just like the clouds in that the bottom of the fog layer is darker than the top of it. There is a tutorial available for the Misty Lake artwork A link will be in the video description. I used circular motion to create the soft, thick fur on the underside of the koala's arm. Here's a close-up of that artwork, and more specifically, of the arm fur. The process of creating the fur is similar to the clouds. I reburn over the bottom of each fur clump so that they are darker than the top of it. The big difference between the fur and the clouds is that the fur has these meandering channels between the small clumps of fur. I know that's a terrible description, but it's the best that I can think of at the moment. Circular motion can be used to create slightly out-of-focus tree bark on a background tree. Circular motion creates bark with soft edges. The softer the edges are, the more out of focus it will appear. A distant evergreen pine tree can be created by burning circular motion using a writer pen tip. The circular motion is closed and the burn strokes are small. I use this technique on the background of a dog portrait. There is an in-depth tutorial that explains how to create this tree and 2 other types of evergreen trees. A link to that tutorial will be in the video description. I also used a writer pen tip to burn circular motion on the face of this bison. This is my attempt to replicate the curly and fairly coarse hair that was found there. Obviously, I'm not done with this artwork, so I can't tell you if anything else will be required. I've also used circular motion to create a bumpy texture on this steampunk fish. I'm not sure that bumpy is the best word to describe this texture, but I couldn't think of anything better. If you have any ideas on what to call this texture, leave a comment and let me know. Most of the time, I layer circular motion over other burn strokes. For example, I layer circular motion over a patch of uniform color. This darkens the area and creates a slight texture. This is true regardless of the pen tip being used. Let me show you some examples of layering that I've done in my artwork. My steampunk clock is artwork that I've used a lot of circular motion layering on. For example, the inner ring on the clock started out with a fairly uniform base color. Then I burned open circular motion over the top of that using a writer pen tip. The ring with the raised dots is another example. I started burning a layer of circular motion using a shader. I made sure to incorporate a lot of tonal variety into the circular motion. Then I switched to a writer pen tip and burned a layer of tiny dots over the circular motion. I kept the dots fairly uniform in their distribution. Afterwards, I burned a layer of tiny but open circular motion over the dots. Here's a close-up of the unfinished artwork. As you can see, layering circular motion can create some very unique textures. I do have a video that goes into greater detail on this subject. A link will be in the video description. Here's a close-up of the out-of-focus bark I already showed you. Compare that with the in-focus bark on the left, and you can see a considerable difference in their texture. The in-focus bark has a circular motion base, but I burned smaller patches of circular motion and I increased the tonal variety. Also, I used the toe or front edge of the shader to create crisp lines or hard edges along some pieces of the bark. Then I used a writer pen tip and layered a very open circular motion burn stroke over the bark. This created fine details that enhanced the bark texture and made it seem closer to the viewer and very in focus. My last example are the feathers on this wing of my barn owl artwork. I started out with a layer of circular motion using a shader. In areas where I want the color darker, I just reburn over it. Also, I incorporate tonal variety into the burns. Then I used a writer pen tip and burned scribbly lines over the dark areas. The lines are mostly angled in the same direction, but none of the lines are remotely close to being straight. Lastly, I switched back to a shader pen tip and burned small patches of circular motion here and there to darken and further increase the tonal variety in the area. That is it for this video. I hope the information was helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon.